Good morning, everyone. It is Social Surge with Fly and Mo. Wait to go live on the Gram. There we go, finally. Got a special show for you guys today. Looking forward to talking with Ben Wilson and Bryant Cheeley of Site to Do Business. But you guys have to listen to the music first, because the music is new.
Just caught me typing.
I have an echo, what the heck? Or everybody has an echo.
I don't know. Is it affecting everyone, or is it just you?
Everybody. I think Brian, guys, it might be you. Like somebody, both of you, live tech. One of you must have some speaker feedback. Out of thing.
Ben just went off screen. Ben, you're fine. Here we go. I think we're good. There's no more. Yay! All right, everybody. The Social Surge with Fly and Mo. Good morning, DB. Glad to have you here. We are talking with Bryant Cheeley and Ben Wilson of CCIM Tech and Site to Do Business. Good morning, Holly Pennington, who's joined us over on the Gram. We got some Zydeco playing in the background, some special music that What the Heck put together for us, of course, because whenever we have guests here on the show, we have to have special theme music.
Because I'm not special.
Okay, so we have been actually geeking out on Site to Do Business and what they can do when it actually just comes to like data, information that can help you with your brokerage business, how to do reports. And it's actually funny. One of the things that we talked about last week with Bryant is, hey, could we do a map of like all the peeps? Like, what's the state that eats the most peeps in the United States? And he was like, we could probably do that. We could probably map that out. So before we get started, before we get into it, Bryant, Ben, why don't you introduce yourselves to our audience?
All right. Brian, you want to take it away?
Yeah,
Good
sure.
morning.
Good morning, Aaron. I'm Bryant Cheeley. I'm the Learning and Product Improvement Specialist for Site to Do Business. We offer a suite of tech tools for the commercial real estate world. And Ben Wilson here is my coworker here. We tend to provide business analysts, ArcGIS Online, Database USA, a wonderful suite of tools to help the industry there. Ben, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Sure. My name's Ben Wilson. Been with Site to Do Business for about 18 years now. I work right now as the director of sales, but have had a bunch of different roles over the years. And, our real goal is to try to put people in a position to use technology a little bit more effectively so that they might be able to, get to the finish line on more real estate deals. I mean, that's what we do. When you were talking about peeps, I was cracking up this morning. I was reading, this is the only news that I've consumed today, was over in East Dallas, where I live. There is there's a well-known restaurant and bar that is always coming up with like the craziest things to try to get onto social media. And I was cracking up that they were taking Malort. Oh. And they were pouring it into a jar of peeps, and they were having Malort and peep shots for Easter.
Oh.
I just thought that sounds horrendous.
I just went back like 15 years and tasted that.
Doesn't that just sound like a disaster?
Bad going down, bad coming back up.
Oh my gosh. I can't imagine. It was just cracking me up though. When you mentioned peeps, I was like, oh my goch, that's the only thing I know today. I don't know about the news or anything, but
I think
that actually sounds pretty on par for Fly and I. So hey,
I think I would rather read about that than most things. But no, I mean, I think I'm really excited to talk about the tools that you all have been working with and developing, and especially we at Movo, we're service providers, right? But like we have a really intimate like knowledge of, the industry in terms of like our, what we do for our clients, right? And so it's always fascinating for me to talk to other people who are not necessarily doing the deals, but are the the jockeys of the tools that can help people get there faster. And yeah, like we just need to pull back the veil a little bit on what's going on at CCIM Tech, because it's like you guys are like the man behind the curtain, the wizard, right? Right.
So why is Site to Do Business, like commercial real estate's best kept secret?
So I think one of the things that a lot of people don't realize about our tool is that it's available to anyone. We've forever kind of been entrenched in the CCIM world, which all of our CCIM members get access to these tools. But I think when people have heard about us, CCIM Tech, Site to Do Business, they automatically think CCIM. And we love that. We love that we're associated with, this brand for real estate education. But when it comes to, really this tool could be used all over the place. We're not limited to people that are, in that CCIM world that are trying to get their CCIM pins. I think that, one of the things that people just don't realize when with our small staff, it's been hard to get the word out is just, hey, this is available to people in banking, franchising. If you're in the EDC world, if you're, maybe you're in the real estate world, but you don't have enough deals to qualify to be a CCIM or something like that. We still got an option for you.
I think so. One of the people who's on the call right now is on the call, who's on the show right now is Aaron Harris. And Aaron has been doing some fascinating stuff with AI. We had a conversation with him a few weeks ago about how he's, in one example, like he was trying to get one of his electric vans to be used by his people, so that it's available, and like mapping out how the distance can go because it's an electric vehicle and stuff like that. So he was doing that. He used Grok, but is that something that he could have done with Site to Do Business?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I remember one of the first times I went to the Esri user conference, which is this gigantic conference where about 25,000 map geeks get together. They had UPS as one of the groups, and they were talking about the left turn. Are you familiar with the left turn for UPS? Okay, so
Fly's not familiar.
No, okay. I'm not. I'm
so UPS in their routing, they at all costs they're going to avoid a left turn because they know how dangerous a left turn is when it comes to car accidents, insurance premiums, and all these things. And so they actually created their own tool. The van is an Albatross. They created the tool.
We have the peanut gallery in here right now, y'all.
I didn't realize that was the first time that popped up. But they're going to take the right turn before they'll take 3 right turns before they'll take a left turn in their routing. Is the gist of it. And anyways, the backbone of all of that was Esri software. Is to say, okay, we need to create the most efficient and effective route, but we're not going to be taking left turns. And so, things like that people don't think about a whole lot actually are decisions that are being made on, how your products get to your front door.
100%.
Yes. One of the best functions for business analysts, which is kind of one of the primary products people go to, is the drive time analysis, right? We're going to pull information on an area, so you have to designate your area. That can be a state, a zip code, a formal geography, but you can also put a 5-minute drive time, a 10-minute drive time. So you can see from your point on the map where all you can go. And that drive time gets very specific. You can use live traffic data. You can use directional traffic data. You can model traffic for a specific day of the week, a specific time of the week. So if you want to prep for the worst case scenario and look at traffic on 9 a.m. on a Monday to model your times, that's all possible for business analysts.
One of the things that when we were discussing this whole, actually discussing the actual like product itself, and something that I know because I worked at, I used to do social media for the local library district. And one of the programs they have you guys actually have a license for that everybody can use. And I don't think people realize what the actual value of that program is because of all the data that it provides. And I know that through our library district, we can go use that specific program, but we only get it for half an hour. And you actually have to go in, get an appointment with a librarian. They have to sign you in. It's kind of a whole process. And so having, the access to that, what are the different programs within Site to Do Business that all of these people can have access to that they normally wouldn't?
Yeah, so really a collection of tools. Kind of our first and foremost, our primary tool are the Esri suite of tools. And so that's Esri's Business Analyst. You get an advanced license so you can do all the suitability analysis and create custom infographics and that kind of thing. But then you're also going to get access to ArcGIS Online, which is really our mapping ecosystem. Database USA. It's a business list and prospecting tool. But, if you need to know every coffee shop in Baton Rouge, or you need to know every manufacturing business in Los Angeles County, it's a great tool for that. You're also getting contact information, phone numbers. So if you're needing to reach out to these people, it's an excellent tool for that. We've got a relationship with Cotality, formerly CoreLogic, who provides our flood maps, and then high quality aerial imagery from a company by the name of Eagle View, or the product is actually by the name of Pictometry, but their product allows you to look at that nice aerial view where you're looking like kind of a bird's eye view. But the nice thing about it is you can also go back in time. And so if you're trying to figure out, okay, how has this area changed over the course of time? You might be able to go back to 2007 and see, okay, 2007, this is farmland. And now there's a CVS. And so, what does that look like, and how does it change for the future? Because, that's what these people are interested in.
James Milner has joined us over on the gram. Good morning, James. We are talking to Ben Wilson and Bryant Cheely of CCIM Tech and Site to Do Business. Now, here's an interesting thing that I think we need to bring. And Fly and I have actually talked about this before. So you do have a lot of brokers out there who are actually using Google Images and Google Earth Images, I should say. And this is
started on this. Every time I see one of these things pop up in my feed, I'm like, oh, you guys don't. Because I'm just so scared that because they're doing really good stuff with it. And then I'm like, oh no, the hammer's going to drop on you. Okay, sorry. I just had to interject because I was like.
It's one that what she's talking about is the fact that in commercial purposes, and I'm not just talking about commercial real estate, but if you are using it for a commercial purpose, you are violating the copyright of that image and of that program. So Fly and I are I'm very particular about when it comes to stuff like that, just because of the fact that I know people who've been sued, who have received letters in the mail or from lawyers and had to pay $20,000 because they got fined for using an image they were not supposed to use. So very, very kind of leery about that. So with what you're telling me, Ben, is through this program, they have almost the same exact kind of information when it comes to those aerial views.
Yeah, I know that's really kind of the differentiating fact, I would say, is the fact you've got the licensing rights to it. You can use it to your heart's content in your marketing materials. Because when you start using Google's images, or when you I always laugh when I see a ton of logos on a map too. Nike doesn't want you using their swoosh.
It's also important to note there that this is not satellite imagery, which is what the Google Earth imagery largely is. This is flown imagery. So they actually take an aircraft up and fly every bit of the United States, or I think it's like 97 point something percent, most of the United States. And you can see it directionally from any angle. But in most cases, the pixelation is better. It's a higher quality image than you would pull off of Google Earth. And then for those that do have their own drones and they don't need Google Earth or Pictometry, they may want to fly their drone up and take drone shots through ArcGIS Online, which is one of our Esri products. They can drop these drone shots into ArcGIS and actually create a 3-dimensional scene which they can drop themselves into with virtual reality. So using some of the Esri products, you can do some really neat things with drone shots. It's pretty cool.
That's crazy to actually have that availability.
Would they call that digital twinning?
That's part of it. Reality mapping is kind of the large term they would use for this, because you, instead of going to take one drone shot, you're actually going to take multiple drone shots from multiple angles. It's kind of like you taking many pictures with your phone, and you can make that little 3D scene. And so once you combine those 3D, multiple drone shots, you can recreate a 3-dimensional scene that you can drop yourself into. And this is really cool for modeling developments. And once you have that model, then yes, you can run it as a digital twin. And you can stress test it and see, all right, where is it casting shadows? When it rains, what's the water drainage look like? I can actually model every component of the building based on its life expectancy. And we can run a simulation and see, all right, in year 25, this beam is probably going to go out. We're going to have to replace the air conditioner in 2032. It's really neat. So it's a predictive analytic tool.
You guys are like, how do you say it? I can't pull the reference up because I haven't finished my enormous coffee, but like, okay, so we got CCIM brokers and other brokers like out in the field, doing their operations, and you guys are like the people back, in the lab, sending James Bond, like the gadgets or whatever, but like that's what I really love about this kind of little secret. I mean, I really do. I think it's a lab. I think that for 20 years, CCIM Tech has been, working directly with brokers and talking with brokers, to develop solutions for real problems they have and getting deals done. And now I feel like with the the rapid, eruption of what's going on now, I feel like you guys are like poised to really do some cool secret agent stuff. I don't know.
It's one of the reasons I really enjoy working with Ben so much, because he's got so much hindsight with this product. He's been here nearly 20 years. I mean, he knows everything it can do. I'm still trying to figure it out in most cases, but I come from the practitioner side. And I've got 10 years in being a broker, a property manager, ran a staff of property managers. And so I kind of understand more of the transactional, down in the trenches, what we need it to do, and he knows what it's capable of. So when we talk through things and put that together, it's really exciting what we come up with sometimes.
Let's talk about what the top 10% are doing that everyone else isn't. So these are the people these are your top users of the actual product. How are they using it, and in what ways are they using it that is different than just the normal average user?
So when I think about our average user, we have so many people that are just, there's a fear to enter the technology world, and we all have access to a million technology tools. And it's like, well, what do I use? How do I use it? And so people just think of Site to Do Business as this application where you can run demographics. Demographics are great, but they're largely commoditized at this point. I mean, you can go in and a quick search on Google is going to get you largely what you're looking for on, what's the income around here? What's the population? Is it growing? Is it declining? Where I see people using this more effective is when they start to bring in their own information. And so what does that look like? Well, what if I've got, maybe if I'm going to take a client on a property tour and I've got information that might exist, in this other universe. Maybe it's on my own proprietary data. Maybe it's sales prices of buildings or cap rates or square footage. It's information that, that I've compiled. Well, I bring that information into my map, and it starts to tell the story of what's going on. So instead of me just saying, hey, you know what, I need to know, is this an area where there's over 100,000 daytime population? Well, that's great and all, but if I don't have the rest of the story, then I'm just telling part of the story. And so I think where people are using those tools more effectively. And then I would also say, like on the presentation side, when you take this information and instead of printing out a PDF and handing it to a client, you create a story map or a dashboard where, the user has access to it and they can click through it and it's their own and it feels like their own. You're just kind of differentiating yourself from your competition at that point, because you're showing them something they haven't seen before. They've got access to this, they know you have access to this tool, but then you kind of give them a little snippet of it. And I think that's Bryant really loves to get into the real big picture stuff. But when you, I think that there's some unique opportunities there too, and I want him to speak about those.
Yeah, I think the best users realize that this is an ecosystem of tools that talk to each other, build off of each other. And so some of our users may just go into business analyst, plot a location, and pull a report. And if you get value from that, great. You're still ahead of most of your competition in doing the minimum. But those that realize it's an ecosystem, your maps you build in business analyst can be pulled into ArcGIS. You can bring in your own shapefile layers, add to them. You can deploy those as web apps. Experience Builder lets you actually build applications built on the Esri ecosystem. And you don't have to be a coder. It's drag and drop widgets very easily. Story Maps that Ben alluded to gives you a designated website for every project, and you can bring your maps, your data, build an actual website so you can present this information. Survey 123 is included. That's like SurveyMonkey, but it collects geographic data and automatically plots it on the map. And so just knowing that you have a suite of tools through ArcGIS Online that leverage each other is wonderful to know, and I've seen some wonderful things done with that.
That's freaking amazing. Like,
I love Mo's face watching. Usually Mo just has to listen to me yap. Now I can see the wheels turning. She's like, oh, I want to do this. I want to do this.
100% because of the fact that Bryant just like scratched the surface. So like when we were talking to Bryant last week, the story came out about Dick's Sporting Goods, how they were beating the S&P 500, which was like people were surprised, and it was tied to youth sports, particularly, wow, that was really hard to say. Youth baseball, right? And so I was like, okay, so then Bryant, he built like this multi-layered map, which was, I think we did it based on age, income, and how much parents were spending on sports. And then it was like, you could take this to like, not that I'm saying anybody should do this, but like you could take this to the rep for Dick's Sporting Goods and say, hey, there's this area in Texas where you are not represented. They're spending a shit ton of money on youth sports. And so here you go. Like, this would be a good location for you, right? To me, that's that kind of data and information. If I were in the business, that's what I would be doing with it. Right. And in fact, one of the things that I sent you guys last night is like you could build a map for where does retail go to die, right?
That's that'd be a good Halloween season one. See, Mo and I had a whole episode where I was like, I'm against the holiday posts, and then that was a landmark episode for me because she changed my mind. But like, so a themed post, I don't know. In general, it has to be a good stunt, and that would be a data-backed stunt. That would be a data-backed marketing campaign, and I like it. And I know Bryant, has done a bunch of map stuff already, but I just get excited about the possibility.
Now that's where this tool becomes a site selector's best friend, right? Because for any retailer, any business type, they're going to have what we refer to as variables that make them tick. And in the Esri tools, business analyst specifically, there's these variables you can search for. These variables may be total population growth, spending, but it gets very specific. So spending habits. And in Mo's example, I look specifically for households that spend more than $300 per year on athletic goods. And so, if you're a quick serve restaurant, you're probably looking for, spending away from home between 10 and 2. We're looking at population growth. We're looking at the spending habits. We're looking at what they want. And so we can look at what variables make your business successful. And I can do that by finding your best performing location and looking at the variables in that area. We can then recreate those variables and look on the map where that population exists and where you're likely to have success.
So could a potential, say somebody has 10 Qdobas, right? I don't know if Qdoba franchises, so excuse me for not knowing that. But if you have some, and by the way, I can't stand Qdoba, but that was the one that was in my head.
Guacamole, I've been seeing the advertisements. Yeah,
doesn't matter how much guacamole you give out, it's still Qdoba. Anyway, if you had Qdoba franchise, we're gonna get some Qdoba hate. Anyway, if you had, like, say you were a franchisor of Qdoba's and you needed that information, they could actually use Site to do business. They don't have to be brokers. They don't have to be. Are there any qualifications for anybody to use Site to do business?
Gotta have a credit card or the way to pay us.
All right, we found it. We found the low barrier to entry. No, but you want to know what? Actually, I think Mo and I on Tuesday were talking about shiny object syndrome in the sense of, and again, going back to kind of the moment that we're at right now with technology and information and AI and all of those kinds of things. I think that there are a lot of tools available. And then, my thing, like when I hear, we have this, 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 that's awesome. And then if I'm like a little broker, I'm not going to be dismissive. If I'm a young broker, if I'm a broker who's new to technology, and I get into, I give Ben my credit card information, we swipe, we're in, I got the keys to the kingdom, I'm going to do 1 million deals. Where do they start? Where do they start?
Ben has done a wonderful job of training and putting together educational material. On our website, we have the Learning Center, which we have a recording of every webinar we've done for the last couple of years. But then there's also some training videos. Ben has done some webinar series on Site to do business for beginners. I love to point people there. It's about an hour long. It's very slow paced. You can follow along and kind of pause as you go. But he's also provided a wonderful series of how to get started, and they're little quick 5-10 minute videos on simple workflows. Within the system, especially within business analysts, for every little function that you go to do, there's a little play video button at the bottom. And Esri has done a great job of putting out some instructional videos to kind of follow each workflow as well.
Yeah, I also want to point out that within Esri's toolkit, they've got the little AI assistant, and it's, they're still working on it, but it is getting so much better than it was a year ago. And I just think of how I see all the other technologies developing. That's going to continue to be a huge player because, instead of me having to know where to define areas and where to go to create maps, you can go in and say, show me the counties that are growing over 2% across the entire country. And you just, type it in, send it on its way, and have the system do it for you. I think that changes the game, is because we're all getting so used to doing that with all of our other tools. If all of our technology isn't doing that, it's just not going to work.
Give us some real stories, some real wins from either brokers or just other people who have used the platform to either score a deal or something like that. Give us a success story.
Gosh, one of my good friends, actually, one of the groomsmen in my wedding is a CCIM, and I can say this now because it's finally closed. We helped him on a project where it was out in Wiley, Texas, and Wiley is a suburb of Dallas, quick growing. It used to be farmland. Now it's highly developed. And they were really trying to knock it out of the park on this development that they had. And they ended up landing Steak and Shake and Trader Joe's in the same shopping center.
Wow. And
it was just because they could show this path of growth. It was so obvious to them. The competition was, they were completely underserved. They could show that people were driving 20 minutes to Parker, 15 minutes to McKinney. And, you got school age kids, you need to be able to get to Trader Joe's and and Shake Shack. Like, that's just, you're not talking about 15-minute drive times. You're talking about 2-minute drive times. I got 2 little kids. I know, like, we're not going to the other place. We're going here.
That's awesome. I love that. What do you think?
So I was going to say some of the best success stories I've seen is that from using this software, you go from gut feeling to data back decision, right? So it's not just a trust me, this works, I've done this before. Here's the legitimate numbers that show you will be successful. And so one example of that is during the COVID epidemic, I was actually representing a retailer at the mall. And with a lease tied to the CPI index, they were claiming that they didn't have the foot traffic, they needed a lease termination or at least a reduced rent rate, et cetera. And so using some of our location tracking software, we were actually able to pull the data to show that not only were they getting just as much traffic as before COVID, it was actually increased on certain days of the week. And so the landlord was actually about to cut their rent in half because he was worried about losing them as a tenant. But we were able to bring this data to the table, show that this was not the case. And they stayed locked in their current rent rate. We got that owner a good bit of operating capital.
That's pretty fascinating that the data showed that even during COVID, they were doing better than they expected. This is where I think brokers and where anybody who's using this, that data is a weapon, right? It's that knowledge is absolutely something that they need to be able to either keep their business or close their business, right? And by close their business, I don't actually mean close doors. I mean like close close business. It's interesting to me that there is so much data available in Site to Do Business. What do you think is one of the things that prevents people or brokers or anybody who's using it? What do you think is the one thing that prevents them from actually using it to its full extent?
Just that it's capable of so much. It can be intimidating. It has a learning curve. And there's different levels of competency that you can have success with here. As I mentioned, if you just want to log in, create a site, and pull a report, you're still providing data that most of your competition is not using. So you're definitely doing better at that point. But if you sit down and watch the learning videos, watch how this communicates with each other, it actually is a lot more intuitive than it looks to be. And so a lot of people are intimidated and just don't sit down and take that hour for the learning curve that pays dividends for years to come. Instead, they'll tap a younger broker in the office and say, hey, sit down, try to figure this out. I need you to figure this out for me. But they don't have the same skin in the game. And there's a lot lost in translation there. So I would highly encourage not to be intimidated. There is a little bit of a learning curve, but it's not as steep as you think it is.
Yeah, I think when people hear the term GIS, Geographic Information Systems, they're like, oh my goodness, I have a tee time for golf or literally anything else. Like I have to go walk my dog. Please no, no lectures, no college level GIS classes. And so I think just when they hear that, they're like, oh, I think there's probably something better I could be doing with my time.
What I love, so here's one of the things, because obviously Fly and I focus on getting content and putting content of value out there. Could somebody who is using Site to Do Business be able to take that information and turn it into good content of value?
Yeah.
Yes, the answer is yes.
I know Brian wanted to talk first here.
It's okay. It's like hard because we're in a Foursquare, but like, I mean, y'all have posted some stuff that has absolutely ripped, and I want to hear more about that.
Yeah, I think just generally one of the basic functions in business analysts is the color-coded maps. And so with a click of a button, any of these variables we've talked about, spending habits, the populations, the renter households, ownership households, you can plot that on the map and get a nice little color-coded image. And you can look at that by the state-by-state level, the county level. We can go all the way down to the census blocks, zip codes, whatever geography you want to see. So I've had some success just pulling some very basic color-coded maps and putting those on social networks. I think one of the better performing posts were actually the renter, the 5-year projection of renter-occupied households. So we can kind of visualize where your renters are going and where that multifamily development is going to be. And obviously the state level isn't that telling. It's going to be California, Texas, and New York, because that's where everybody lives these days. But when you look at it on a county level, you can start to see those specific MSAs that are getting the traction. And that's where you'll start to see those MSAs in random states like Idaho, renters are flocking to Idaho, and I can only guess that's the remote work environment. But I mean, it is beautiful up there, so I'm not knocking Idaho. But so I think using the maps, the color-coded maps, the smart maps, wonderful content to produce, and it's really eye-catching. And if it works for social media, it works for your marketing materials in most cases as well.
Yep, 100%. If like Bryant, you had that one map that that you were just talking about, and that seeing how well that did on social, that immediately should have gone into some email marketing. 100%. Just because we talk about the whole marketing ecosystem, but that got people's attention. And so then by using the, I mean, like I said, I'm talking about, like what states eat the most peeps, right? Like that's so stupid, but it's topical because we have Easter coming, and Easter and peeps go hand in hand, not peeps and malort.
I don't know. I would entertain being convinced, but I think that
I dare you. Double dog.
You want to know what? I'm going to do it. Now I'm going to do it. Okay. Are you happy? Fine. And it's going to be my, okay. So obviously everybody knows that I like the stunts and the memes and all that kind of stuff. But I think, Ben, you said something, you said path to growth, being able to help people envision the path to growth and have the confidence of the numbers to back up that story. I think that, something that really excites me about CCIM and CCIM Tech and all of the tools therein and the relationships therein is that, some of y'all brokers, I mean, like I've met plenty of brokers down here in Louisiana, and some of them are real cowboys. It is the Wild West down here. And what it takes to get a deal done is like mythic in proportions, right? And so, and then for the people who have, situations in, tertiary markets where, yeah, it's not the hottest thing, but you still got to get a deal done. And if you're not backed by a big shop, because there might not be a big shop there, or the big shop is there and they have their own kind of set of tools, right? Like being in that situation and being, at a smaller shop, but being somebody who is boots on the ground, this is where I do think, not enough brokers are really capitalizing on, moving the kind of data storytelling that they're already doing to win business into a visible channel on social media, because then you can become for the world the person who is, I see what's going on here, and because I have these tools, I have this technology, I can tell you exactly, for whoever it is, right? And so for everybody, but especially for smaller brokers, or you know what I mean? Sorry, guys, but it's just like for brokers who are up against a lot. I think this can really this is like the Iron Man suit for me.
It's providing that value, right? We talk about this all the time. How are you providing value to either your clients, your prospects, or even just your audience on social media? This is a way that you can provide that value. I don't know if Adam Dunn uses Site to Do Business. No idea. However, Adam Dunn, he's a broker out of Boston. He does multifamily, and he is very big into numbers, very big into sharing data about that. And that's what he's become known as, because he has this information. He loves to do deep dives into it. If you want to differentiate yourself on social with your clients, with your prospects, this is how you do it. You provide this. Let me ask Ben and Bryant before we go. We have about 2 minutes. If somebody wanted to, and I don't know the answer to this question, so I apologize that I didn't ask it in advance, but if somebody wanted to test drive Site to Do Business, is there a possibility for them to do that?
Absolutely. So the way that we like to do that, though, is with a little bit of hands-on training. It's one of those things where, Mo, I know you drive a Ferrari, and so there's a good chance that you're not going to just hand over the keys to the Ferrari and let someone go wild with it. So what we're going to do is we're going to get you in the passenger seat, and we're going to show you what the Ferrari does. And I think that over time, it's a little bit more of a time commitment on our side, because, we got to sit down with people. We don't know what they're coming in with. But I think that is how we get to the finish line on these deals, because we know that if you've actually seen it work for a project that you're working on, that's where it's going to make the difference. I can tell you all about this data all day long, but until it affects you, it's not going to be that useful. And we'll be the first to admit, like there are some learning hurdles, and we want you to have day one success. And so if we'll go in there with you and kind of help you out on that first deal, then that's going to be the best outcome, I think.
All right. So as you guys can see at the bottom, we have Site to Do Business. We have the website address there. Ben and Bryant, if people wanted to connect with you, they want to talk to you about this, how do they get in touch with you?
Contact us section of STDB, bwilson@ccim.com, bchili@ccim.com. I mean, LinkedIn, Facebook. I mean, how do you want to get in touch with us?
I like to see a man of service, a man with a servant's heart. Love it. I'm looking at what kind of people.
Last but not least, you guys have the spring forum coming up. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, so CCIM puts on a spring and fall forum each year. Our spring forum is in Philadelphia, April, I want to say 20th through 22nd, 23rd. Forgive me, I don't know the exact dates offhand, but we will have a big event there for Site to Do Business. We are going to have a relaunch. You will see that things will look a little different as our relaunch on April 20th. So we'll have some new products and new things to show. It's going to be a very interesting event. So even if you're not able to attend in person in Philadelphia, be watching for the days thereafter, because you're going to see some things different.
Awesome. Ben, Bryant, thank you so much for joining us today on Social Surge. Again, if you guys need to get in touch with them, you can see the website address. It's stdb.com. Please go visit them. Have a lot of fun. And we actually have a map of the month that's going to be showing up on Friday on the Site to Do Business LinkedIn page. So I can't wait to share that with you. It'll be interesting. I think it's interesting. I think everybody here in this room thinks it's interesting. But we'll be doing map of the month on Site to Do Business LinkedIn page going forward. So I can't wait to share that with you. And as a programming note, and Robin Hendricks, if you're still here, you're going to have to change your calendar. We are actually moving to 6:30 a.m. Pacific, 9:30 a.m. Eastern, starting next week. Yes. Okay. So starting next week, we are moving to 6:30.
So I don't have to be late anymore. I was not late today. I showed up on time.
I know. You knew about that Malort and Pete's coming your way.
All right, I'm going to tag you. All right.
All right, everybody. Have a great one. We'll see you back on Tuesday at 6:30. 6:30. We'll see you then. Bye.
Thanks, bye.
Thanks.